Hi-ho! I want to share with you my favorite raw banana nut bread. I'm not going to put any nuts in it this time around though. It starts with some coconut oil. That's a couple of tablespoons that I warmed in the dehydrator. The Artisana brand of coconut oil is my favorite because it actually has coconut meat in it, not just the oil. That is one frozen thawed banana and one fresh overripe banana. Next up, we have shredded coconut, dried shredded coconut. I think I'm just going to mix everything in the Blentex to avoid dirtying another bowl. Make sure you get unsweetened. A dash of pink Himalayan salt and some hemp seed protein fiber. Yeah, I thought those were hemp seeds when I bought them. I didn't realize they were already ground. You want to grind your own for added freshness and nutrient content. So far, we've got 1 part shredded coconut and 2 parts hemp seed flour. I am going to grind the pumpkin seeds. Now, I'm not going to grind them very fine because the longer you leave them in the coffee grinder, which is what I'm using, it's just a coffee grinder dedicated to nuts and seeds. The longer you leave them in, the more likely they are to become a butter. The friction and heat from the blades will separate out the oil, and you'll end up with a nut butter instead of a sort of flour. To make them very light and powdery and a finer flour, you want to soak them first and then dehydrate them, which sounds crazy, but you need them dry in order to process into a flour, and the enzymes will be released when you soak them, so that's just a good idea anyway. For this recipe, we don't need a very fine powder. In go the bananas. I removed the extra water that was in the bowl after I thawed the frozen bananas. There's my coconut oil. It's all soft and gooey. I like using butters that are hard below room temperature in my bread mixes because it shortens the dehydration time. It basically allows me to use the refrigerator as part of the process of firming my end product instead of relying on just the water evaporation of the dehydrator. So those are all mixed, and I just remembered I didn't add any spices. So I'm just going to sprinkle in a little bit of ground cinnamon. You could add nutmeg, allspice, pumpkin spice, cloves. I get all of my spices online at Nuts Online, and I keep them stored in the freezer. In fact, everything you saw except the coconut oil was frozen. I'm just going to mix that in since I forgot to do it ahead of time. I also sometimes use lucuma or mesquite or ground goji berries if I want them to be that color. This is a great base for a lot of different recipes. Now, I'll be the first to admit that at this part of the process, it looks pretty bad. Yeah, that looks pretty gross. It's not. It's banana nutty even right now. I frequently taste them here and decide whether or not it needs more or less of an ingredient before I dehydrate them because it's going to taste roughly the same once it's all done. It's a little more refined. The flavors have had a chance to marry, so they're very distinct at this stage, but once they're completed, it's roughly the same, just a little more sophisticated, I guess. I have used this recipe as a base for cookies, chocolate chip cookies. I've added oatmeal and raisins to make oatmeal raisin cookies. I've used apples instead of bananas to make an awesome apple cinnamon cookie. You sprinkle a little granulated stevia on top, and they make apple cinnamon sugar cookies. Love it! So, here I'm just going to wet the back of the spatula to keep it from sticking while I spread it out a little thinner. Today I'm going for something that's about the thickness of a pita bread. But I've also made scones by making them a little thicker and sort of triangular shaped. And I've made biscotti with a little slivered almond. So from this point out, I'm just gonna flick a little water on it, the way you would flour actually, and then I'm gonna smooth it out to get that consistency. Because it's so dry, again, it doesn't take a long time to dehydrate, but it also is likely to stick to your fingers. And I like my batters really dry just because I like to save myself the time. And I also add the hard butters, which saves me more time because they'll continue to harden in the refrigerator. You just want to be careful that they're a little bit um, mushy when you take them out of the dehydrator. Not a lot. They should have a skin on top so that they're firm to the touch without you getting batter on you. And they should definitely hold together when you transfer them off of the sheet. You should be able to cut them when you remove them. So this is morning, and I'm quickly making this so that I can put it in the dehydrator and it'll be ready at lunchtime. So that's it. I'm just going to throw that in the dehydrator, flip it halfway through, and there's the finished product. I'm going to cut that up and make my bread for my sandwich. Thanks for watching. Hope you try it. Bye.